Not these guys.
Not these guys. Well, anyway, I'm very proud of my daughter and the career she's chosen. And so I'm happy to be here with you today and talk about engineering. I've had a 50-year career in engineering. Sounds like a long time to you guys. But I had to make a decision starting in high school that affected my career, and I really wish that somebody had been around and had a program like this when I was in high school. We didn't have anything like this, so you kind of were on your own. I want to share with you some things that happened to me in my career, some background about engineering, so what we're going to cover today is basically what it is. I'm going to talk specifically about civil engineering, but I'm going to give you a little overview of engineering in general from my perspective, because in 50 years I've seen a lot of change in the industry, a lot of change in how we do things. I want to talk a little bit about how you get to become one, and particularly with civil engineering, there's a difference between civil engineering and some of the other disciplines, because civil engineering, generally speaking, is considered to be a profession, and in order to practice it, you have to get a license from the state, like a medical license to practice engineering. That's not necessarily true with all disciplines, but it's generally true with civil engineering. So we're going to talk about how to become one, and then we're going to talk a little bit about how the engineering industry works. So what do you guys think engineering? Y'all all taking classes in engineering? So what do you talk about? What do you think the definition of engineering is? Yeah.
The study of the science of how things work.
Study of science, how things work, that's good. Anybody else? First guy gets all the credit. That's a good definition. My working definition of engineering is this: all engineering is the application of physical and scientific principles, particularly math and physics, to the real world problems of civilized societies that affect the quality of life of the citizens of those societies. You can't have civilized society without engineering. Engineering is the basis for civilized societies. The first examples of engineering are ancient, as ancient as civilization. Good example of one of the first engineering projects is the pyramids in Egypt. Those are engineering structures. Another good example is irrigation. First examples of irrigation were in the ancient civilizations of Mesopotamia, Tigris and Euphrates River. You had to divert water, figure out how to make it flow in channels, irrigate fields so that you could have advanced agriculture for the time and people could live in dense cities. Before that, you couldn't live in a dense city. You couldn't have people with the freedom or the excess time to think about how to advance civilization. So engineering is literally the basis for civilization. Later, you had examples like the Romans, who built viaducts that still stand today in Europe to deliver water to their cities. They built roads all over their empire. A lot of those roads are still there. Mainly they built for the military to use, but they built a lot of roads. So originally, all engineering was civil. Today it's subdivided. When the Industrial Revolution came along, you had the invention of the steam engine, power systems, manufacturing developed, and so forth. And so you had the development of mechanical engineering to handle that special. Then somebody invented electricity and figured out how to distribute power to homes and buildings, commercial enterprises and so forth. So electrical engineering became a separate discipline. Today you've got disciplines like electrical, computer engineering, environmental engineering, biotech engineering. There are all sorts of engineering disciplines that exist today that didn't exist years ago. But just simple things like that we take for granted today, like pure water. That's an engineering project. The water you drink in your home 100 years ago, you might have been drinking impure water, got some kind of waterborne disease like typhoid fever. We don't see that today because of engineering programs. The air conditioning you enjoy in your homes, same thing with engineering projects. The car you drive, gas you put in, that's all the result of engineering work. So, what does a civil engineer specifically do? Well, my definition of that is we apply those same physical and scientific principles to what you can call the built environment, okay? The environment that we live in every day. That's a picture of a subdivision, in case you can't see it in the back, streets, houses, so forth. Most of us live in a single-family house or maybe an apartment unit. And a civil engineer designed the water distribution system, the sewage collection system, all those streets, and all of the other things that are necessary for people to live in an environment like this, safely and in a healthy environment. So civil engineers do these kinds of things. Do it on a bigger scale as well. This is a picture of a water treatment plant that might serve a city like Houston, where you're bringing water from hundreds of miles away maybe, transmitting it, treating it to standards that we have today, and distributing it to the homes you saw in the slide a minute ago. All of those things are civil engineering projects. Now, when I started my practice, or started my career, I should say, 50 years ago, we didn't have standards like this. There were no standards for wastewater treatment in the state of Texas when I started my career. So cities could dump sewage into any creek they chose. All that's different now. You know, all of that's a result of civil engineering. Another example of things that civil engineers do is when you leave your subdivision and drive when you leave your home and drive someplace, mall, downtown Houston, wherever you're going, drive on the freeway. And this is a picture of a congested freeway and a project that's going to relieve that. And there's another project. That involves disciplines like transportation engineering, figure out how much traffic flow you've got, how many cars you've got to deal with, structures. You've got to have a structural analysis, figure out how to hold all that load up for those cars and trucks that use those facilities. So that's another example of a civil engineering project. This building was designed, the space was designed by an architect, but the structure was designed by a civil engineer. Structural engineering is a sub-discipline of civil engineering. Another good example of engineering is water projects. And that involves water treatment and distribution in the slide I showed you earlier, and things like flood control projects. That's real important in an area like this, Gulf Coast of Texas, hurricane-prone area. We have severe rainfalls, and we tend to have flooding. This is a picture on the left of Texas City, Texas, and the flooding that they used to experience when a hurricane came in there. And on the right is a picture of a pump station, part of a project that I happened to design in the firm that I've created several years ago. And since we built that project in 1979, Texas City has had no flooding from hurricane-related events or any flooding at all. So flooding like this erodes the quality of life in communities. So if you have repeated flooding, you're going to have economic problems, you're going to have degradation of the quality of life in those communities and so forth. This is another picture on the left of flooding in Greensboro, which is over on the east side of Houston. Used to have severe flooding over there, still have some, but there was an engineering project that mitigated a lot of the flooding in that area. So civil engineers, literally, whether you realize it or not, affect your daily lives in many, many ways, okay? So, next thing let's talk about for a minute is how you become one, which you may already have a good idea. Some of you are seniors, probably already picking your colleges at this point, making applications and so forth. So let me give you a couple of pointers. This might be more relevant to juniors. But the first thing you want to do, and seniors, hopefully you've done it, take all the math and science you can in high school. All of it. Many AP classes as you can, because that's going to help you when you pick your college. The other thing I'd recommend is take a creative writing course. Do you have a creative writing course here?
Yes.
Take it. And the reason for that is lots of people think engineering is just math and science. And it is, that's the basis. But engineers, particularly civil engineers, have to communicate what they think about their projects. Why somebody in government should support that project. And that takes writing skills. When I was in business for myself, we had a great deal of difficulty hiring graduates who could write. We had to school them in that because the colleges had cut back off of what they were teaching in English and writing. So I would urge you to pay attention to that. And even if it's not required, take that course. Creative writing will do you good. Make sure when you pick a college that it is ABET accredited. ABET stands for Accrediting Board for Engineering and Technology. It's the National Association that accredits engineering programs in college, besides getting a degree in engineering and looking for a job. Okay? Almost everything that a civil engineer does involves the public, like we talked about a minute ago. Things that affect the public in general. You're driving on a freeway, you're drinking water from a water treatment plant that an engineer designed, all these things. So the state deems this to be a profession. It requires, if you want to practice it, that you get a license and you conform to some set of regulations, ethical standards that the state promulgates. Okay? Now, what's required for an engineering license in Texas is not just a degree. That's the first step. But then you have to demonstrate that you can apply what you learned in college. At least 4 years of work experience before the state will let you take the professional exam to be licensed as an engineer. So right now, in high school, if you want to think about civil engineering, you need to think about 8 years into the future, not 4. Because you got to get a degree from ABET school. Then you need to work under the supervision of a licensed engineer for 4 years or more. And then you need to apply to the state to take the professional exam. Now the exam's in 2 parts. The first part's called the fundamentals exam. And it's what it sounds like, it's fundamentals. They offer it the senior year you're taking it. Even if you're not sure you're going to be licensed later, take it. Because it's real hard to take it 3 or 4 years later after you've been out of school. So it's not hard to pass as a senior in college, it's really hard to pass later. After you've worked at least 4 years and passed the fundamentals exam in your senior year, then you apply to the state. State lets you take a professional exam, which is a 2-day, 2-part exam. Pretty tough. Not everybody passes it the first time. Once you pass that, then the state gives you a license, and you can practice on your own after that, provided somebody will let you. If you can talk somebody into giving you an assignment or go to work for somebody else, get responsible charge of the work. So that's the process for getting your civil engineering degree and entering the profession. Now, let's talk a minute about careers and what you can expect in civil engineering. Now, most of the mechanical engineers and electrical engineers and people like that, and you heard, I guess they were all in the auditorium.
Yeah, subsidies.
Listen to subsea people. A lot of those people are petroleum engineers or mechanical engineers or some of the disciplines. Some of them might be civil engineers. The energy industry hires a lot of civil engineers. Because you can't find enough mechanical, civil, and petroleum engineers right now because there's a big oil boom going. One of the speakers down there talking about the oil boom in 79 to 81. So I remember that. My firm grew dramatically because all of the oil people were buying houses, which we designed. But in 83 it collapsed. But one of the things that happened is all the mechanical, electrical, petroleum guys lost their jobs, and most civil engineers kept theirs. Because even in bad times, you have to have public service. It might slow down, but it almost never stops. So, at any rate, most civil engineers are in what we call the public sector. That just means that they're doing projects that the public owns and operates, generally speaking. Highways are owned by the public. Water supply systems are owned by the public. So civil engineers design those, and most civil engineering jobs are related to those projects. And you either work for an agency, a public agency that's doing it, or you work for a private company that's designing those projects under a contract with that public agency. Don't excuse my voice. So, most of the jobs for civil engineers are in that field, and a lot of them are in the private sector for private firms that design all those projects for public agencies like the Texas Highway Department, or some of the public agencies like that. Civil engineers do find jobs in industry, like the oil industry, manufacturing of some kind, particularly if it's engineering products that be manufactured, construction, other fields like that. Now, I want to spend some more time. Let me go. I want to spend a little time talking about my career, put some of this in context for you. And at this point, anybody got any questions, feel free to interrupt me, and I'll try to talk about it. But I've spent 50 years with the civil engineering field. I graduated from Ball High School in Galveston a long time ago, 1959. I got a Bachelor of Science degree from Lamar University in 1963. And did not understand anything about ABET. And fortunately, when I enrolled as a freshman at Lamar, they got their accreditation that year. So I just looked into it. So check on that. Got my degree. First thing I did, and I'm a licensed engineer, right now the numbers are up to 200,000, something like that. So I've got an old number, which you would expect. I started work in the public sector. I went to work for the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation in Denver, Colorado, because I thought I wanted to design dams, and they designed dams, but I got up there and found out that I'd have to wait 20 or 30 years before they let me design the dam. I didn't understand about this process of learning and applying what you do and demonstrate. So I was a little disheartened with that, and so I left and joined the private sector in Houston. Went to work for a consulting firm in Houston and worked for them for 6 or 7 years until about 1970. And then I started Pate Engineers and grew that firm to, I don't know, over 300 people we had when I sold it to the employees in 2005. Now, I say that because civil engineering is very interesting, lots of career pickers. I personally designed a lot of things, hands-on design, a lot of things. Tech City Flood Control Project is one of my favorite projects of all time. And I personally supervised the design and construction of that project. Saved lots of folks in Texas City a lot of grief over flooding, a lot of personal satisfaction in doing something like that, in doing projects like that. So later though, you know, and when I started my firm, I wasn't thinking about building a big business. I was thinking about doing projects. But later I decided, you know, I might be an entrepreneur. I want to be in business. I want to build an engineering business. So I had that opportunity as well. So, you know, you never know at this age. I had no idea when I was in high school that I really wanted to build a business. It's not quite like my father was in business for himself. And I always thought, well, you know, it might be a good idea to do this. But I had the opportunity to do it, which you don't necessarily have that opportunity with some of the other engineering disciplines. So I founded that firm. Later, I sold it to the employees. I founded another firm that did highway projects, specialized in that. Got out, you know, dissolved that partnership a year ago now, and started another engineering company that's going to do telecommunications engineering. So I've had an interesting, varied career over time because I picked civil engineering. Now, I'm not integrating any other discipline. There are plenty of great, interesting careers in other disciplines. I happen to be a civil engineering person, so that's what I'm talking about today. So that's my career. Now, spend the rest of the time, I don't know how much time we have. So, once give you an overview there, but let's spend the rest of the time answering your questions and talking about things that might have come up in your classes that you're curious about, or things that you might want to know about college or engineering or licensing or anything else. Yes, sir.
I was talking to someone and they said that the way you become a professional engineer has changed.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I was talking to someone and they said that the way to get your professional engineer license has changed. Like it used to be 5 years and then you take the exam, but now it's harder. Is that true?
Well, it's true in a historic context because Texas, 15 years ago, didn't require an exam. Now they do. And that's been true for 10 or 15 years. I used to be on the board of registration for engineers in Texas.